To Dmytro Shymkiv, in terms of what Dominique has just said, perception is reality. The perception about Ukraine today internationally is distorted. It does not really correlate to the reality, to the situation. And I mean, do you think the government could be doing more in terms of this investment promotion and getting the story out?
Thank you. A few things which, first of all, I would like to thank you, Tim, for mentioning 35 criteria of membership, because actually Strategy 2020, President's Strategy 2020, is actually based on this. When we look at where we see the long-term vision, it's not, yes, the aspiration is membership, but the target is qualification. And qualifying, we actually look at the 35 membership criteria, and we define them as a beacon for our reforms. And when we look at the big list of the reforms, a lot of areas, that's all we have to do. I've already mentioned a few things that we have to do first, but I would like to go to some of the numbers. The GDP forecast for 2015 was expected to be minus 11%. We already seen for the first 6 months, the industrial production outcome being down minus 19%. And we also see a recovery in a few areas like agriculture and some of the manufacturing. Important, we managed, and thank you for the National Bank strategy and great efforts of the governor and support of international institution, we managed to bring national reserves to 13 billion. This is to 12 billion right now, but the estimation is going to be up to 13 billion. We have high inflation, but we need to remember that back in April we increased prices, gas prices, in household, so the cost of housing in Ukraine increased significantly. And that's actually impacted all the indicators. I think that next year we'll have much more balanced picture when we will be looking at the financial numbers for the country, as well as all different numbers for macro area. We even in July we have 2% drop in inflation, consumer inflation on CPI. Now back to the attracting investments, and this is critical. I think that debt restructuring was extremely important. And again, a lot of speculation back last week on Monday. There was a lot of talks, will the parliament vote or not? We got more than 300 votes. There was a lot of help of international support, big thank you. But again, we managed to do that. What it gives a significant cut, it gives a breathing time, and the creditor become an interested party for the growth of Ukraine. Despite all the speculation on the market, that's important. Because when the creditor is interested in your growth, they're actually interested that the credit rating is changed. Because when you look today at what the main problem Ukrainian companies have in Ukraine is a credit rating. Anybody who operates, and I mentioned the company who are doing investments, it's availability of the money. Down to the earth, availability of the money. That's why people are here, because they can actually bring private money more easily today than actually state money sometimes. We get IMF, we get World Bank, we get member states, and then there is a gap, because all structured financing has a kind of restriction when they see CCC. They just see and they say, sorry. It's prepayment on investments, a lot of different things. Many talks have been taking place about establishing a fund, and there are a lot of discussion. Happens to be involved in this. The question is, who's going to chip in? And I want to also I know that everybody initially tends to Minister of Finance and Minister of Foreign Affairs. The Minister of Finance and Foreign Affairs in many countries says, look, we already helping. International institutions says, look, we already helping. So the question of international community, and again, we need to compare Greece versus Ukraine, and we're going to bring this topic again and again. 1.8 versus 56, I think it's a big difference. And we would expect more. If we can't get more money, help us to get that triple C in some form of attracting money to Ukrainian business. As one step, which took place already, is we got a loan from European Investment Bank, which is offering, it's a 400 million, which goes to finance small and medium business. And this is a project which is currently taking place with the Ministry of Finance. And the Ministry of Finance today needs some help in structuring this so that actually the money goes to small and medium business. Because for them, again, we're going to see here today the story from the National Bank, but the previous number, 30 plus, was a challenging thing for any business. And when I was in Berlin, I asked the German business people, I was like, think about that number and your decision on investment scenarios or borrowing. It's something challenging. So this is a challenge where we see and where we're looking for the help from international communities bringing funds. I think in the short-term perspective, we'll see more small and medium investors coming in the country in exploring opportunities versus big investment and big projects and big companies. What government is doing? As a part of actually a reform agenda, we have a group which is focusing on promotion in Ukraine. Ministry of Economic and Development has a special group focusing, and we actually interesting, we passed the reform responsibility, the National Reform Council, from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which usually been a tendency to place it there, to the Ministry of Economy. Why? Because attracting investment and promoting of Ukraine is exactly about economy. This is a conscious decisions of the government. And that's what's happening now. It's established. You look at our ambassadors in Europe today. One of the best class ambassadors who are actually doing everything possible to bring investments in Ukraine. So this is everyone. Second is investors who currently operate in Ukraine. And it's about red tapes, rates, indecent police behavior, tax authority, yada, yada. We talked about it before. We need to kind of stop it and talk about transparency. And we also need to be fair. Not every international business have been operating in Ukraine in the transparent rules. Fact? Fact. But I think we need to bring it to the level where it's become transparent, because return on investments and the growth in Ukraine can be much higher. So, to sum up, next year, the vision and the perspective that have been stated by the cabinet, we are looking for the growth next year. I think that for the help of international community of bringing real project and real investment scenarios plus privatization is a real thing that is on the table, and there is a consensus with the President and Prime Minister on this. In the Parliament, majority of the Parliament is pro privatization, etc., and attracting business. But at the same time, one of the elephant in the room, which still remains and still not resolved, is the sales of land. Removing moratorium. And unfortunately, this subject is still a political debate versus a already made decision. Finally, big thank you for the National Bank of Ukraine. Amazing results. Very, very strong focused, very energetic, and I think big, again, thank you for any investor who are doing and exploring and going in investment in Ukraine. And there was more stories to come, believe me. Unfortunately, the military situation creates negative cases for us.
Dominique, please.
It's not every day I have the chance to sit next to the deputy head of the President administration, Mr. Shymkiv. Can you organize that we have more than 1 year visa for foreign investors? Because every year I'm spending 6 weeks trying to get my new visa. I would love to have a 5-year visa. I would pay for it. I think all of us would. And I think it would be just a show of opening the country. It's not
a very tangible proposal.
Yeah, I have a counter proposal. I would like to ask, and it was already committed from European Union, that visa liberalization take place.
I'm all for it. Look, I'm all for it. That would be the best thing we could offer Ukraine today. It would be also, it's not only a gift, it would indicate to some other countries that if they do not behave in a civilized way, they can't get